Thank you, praise team, and also Debbie and Jimmy for helping us all worship together and so on. At this time, Children's Church is dismissed, and we want to step over to the mom and bring the message of the Lord is laid on us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You guys, last time I was here, got to share a modern day miracle. You didn't know something this big or this old could move that fast, did you? I apologize to you guys that I ran out so quickly, but the end was near. So, thank you for prayers. It's a pleasure to be back with you guys again. Turn with me to 1 John chapter 3. We're going to attempt to finish what I started last time. We made our way through the introduction at least. Maybe it was a blessing that I wasn't feeling well. I didn't subject you to a longer message, therefore. So there's that. We're going to look at that third chapter this morning of 1 John. And together we're going to reflect on our identity as his children. That's the theme really that John moves to. Those of you that haven't been with us working through the first part of 1 John, John opens up to the Ephesian church, the churches in Asia really, with the idea in chapter 1, in those first 4 verses, that Jesus is our life. He moves on to tell them that he is also our light, and that he is our learning, our lawyer, our advocate. He intercedes for us. In chapter 2, verses 1 to 5. Then tells us about a commandment that's not really new. It's been there from the beginning, and that's that we love one another. That's part of who we are as his children. It's part of the requirement for his family. Who we are. And then he encourages us in verses 12 to 14, showing us that all through the path of maturity, that idea of we are becoming more and more like his son. We are being made over in his image. And that 50-cent word used in theological circles, that we are going through the process of sanctification. What that really is to say is being like Jesus. Then he comes to the part, verses 15 to 27 of that second chapter, that if we are his children, that we will know him and that we will remain with him, abiding with him. And that brings us to chapter 3, but I omitted 2 verses. I'm going to start with that. It's the last 2 verses found in chapter 2. But I want you to see a couple of things, remind you of a couple of things. 1 John is again that church of Ephesus. And if you're familiar with the New Testament, you're very familiar with Ephesus because you've been there with Paul numerous times. This is a church that has been prominent throughout the New Testament ever since it was established early on in Acts. But now John, coming to the end of his journey, the last of the disciples who had been with Jesus when he was alive, wants to encourage this church and wants to help them understand who they are. He wants to help them be able to stand up to false teachers that are saying that they need something more than just Jesus. It's Jesus and something. And that false teaching has been creeping into this local body of believers, and John wants to not only encourage them, but stamp out any creeping in of a false doctrine. And so he's working his way in this letter help strengthen this church, and he does it all through the book by comparing and contrasting the truth. Jesus is the life. Apart from him is eternal death. Jesus is the light. Apart from him is eternal darkness. There is righteousness found in him. There is sin apart from him. On and on these go, and as we move through this, you'll see it again and again. But with the idea of reflecting our true identity as his children, I want to talk to us for just a minute about who and what our identity is. How many times in your course of your day, your week, your month, do you have to prove who you are? How many times is your life, day in, day out, reflect who you are? I have a hard time denying that Bud Olson is my dad. I sound like him. Unfortunately, sometimes I act like him, my wife says. My identity was somewhat forged between him and my mom. They helped make me who I am. Our identity is exactly that. Douglas Scott Olson is a label that they use to identify who I am. But at my core, I am the sum of what I believe and how I behave and what I show to you and all those around me by my action. So we open in this